WP, the heroes were too late, and your grand evil scheme is finally unfurling. I should have had my work peer-reviewed. This is not even close to what I was expecting. The barbarian Archiax's axe flew through the air, a whirling tool of death. But it was too late. The ground trembled with magic, and the axe evaporated as it reached my flesh. The great bubbling energy that ran from my skin to the ground and cascaded upwards into the sky could not be undone. Archiax's face fell. The others were coming up the mountain cliff behind him, but they were as children before the things I had released. I thought over the lines again. I had read the book cover to cover, and this time, I knew there could be no mistakes. I recited the words that the spell promised and smiled in grim satisfaction. All the people shall be as cruel as the devils of hell. The sky will fall and smother the earth in darkness. The dead shall rise and feast on the flesh of the living, and all the sinners will rejoice and live as if kings. I looked down on the peasants in the fields below and watched in bated anticipation, knowing that the promised lines would take place one at a time, and I would revel in their slow, agonizing descent upon the world. The first pulsation ran through me, and the grass for miles shuddered in a great sweeping wave, as if struck by a sudden harsh gust of wind. It knocked the peasants to their knees, and when they stood they were, as I knew they would be, changed forever. All the people shall be as cruel as the devils of hell. Man caught my eye as he turned to his wife. Yes, I thought, tasting the sweetness of my victory. Yes, gouge out her eyes, bite her, cut her, and... He kissed her, then he reached down and pulled up a bunch of flowers. Wait, what? I was suddenly reminded of my last trip into hell, the descent into its domain. And thinking of it, did not the devils hold the door for me? Did not that one devil have me round to his hovel of ash and brimstone for dinner? I had thought that was because I was the great and terrible Drakfarin Van Setern Kraxes, scorcher of the western plains and bringer of death. But it could have just been that they were pleasant. My face fell into my palm. Not again. I thought bitterly, remembering the book's promise of turning a village into hounds, only to transform them all into labradoodles. And rather than tearing the people of their rival village to pieces, as I knew the hounds would, they had been adopted one by the next village over. A decade of war had ended in a single afternoon. Or the promise that a spell would pull a man's living flesh from his body, only for it to remove the smallest scrap from him. Then, to my horror, the horror of the great and terrible Drakfarin Van Setern Kraxes, scorcher of the western plains and bringer of death. The man had come to me the next day with nothing but thanks and hugs, saying the doctor had declared him cancer-free and that I had, in fact, saved his life. I was pulled from the painful memory as the next pulsation rushed out of me, sending the grass reeling before the dark magic. The dead shall rise and feast on the flesh of the living. The ground trembled as the dead tore free from it, clawing their way to the surface. Yes, I thought, yes, rise and have your fill, my minions of chaos. But they didn't look like minions of chaos, quite the opposite. They looked incredibly healthy. My lower lip trembling with rage, I turned to see that the 2 bards I had murdered on my way up the hill had risen with the rest of the dead, and the group of would-be heroes were holding bloody hands, skipping around in a circle and singing. One of the recently deceased bards had something in his mouth, but it appeared to be the flesh of an apple. My hand clawed at my own face. Fuck, I thought bitterly. And as the next pulsation rang out from me, I didn't so much as hope for a good outcome. And all the sinners will rejoice and live as if kings. This time it was not the dead that rose, but houses. Great immense mansions and castles burst through the surface of the land, towering above the peasantry, who stared at them with gaping mouths. There were more than I could have ever imagined. At least one for every man, woman, and child in the fields. A great cheer rose from the heroes that sent my blood boiling. And I remembered what I had told them in my last great monologue, to which the bards had yawned at me. Every man, woman, and child is a sinner, and I could not have been more annoyed to be right. I looked over the grimoire once more. The boiled, torn leather of its surface felt as familiar to me as my own skin. But there, at the very bottom, I spotted something I had never seen before. Small text. Delicately, so as not to tear the flesh of the book any further, I raised it to the light, reading first the large text above and then the smaller text below. This book is the bringer of darkness, the starter of the end. And when it is read, mankind will suffer eternally. And below, in the smallest text I had ever read, caution, book may not cause suffering. Darkness may be temporary and followed by a greater period of light. Furthermore, the end times can last several thousand years and be surprisingly pleasant.